After a week off, the number 2 ranked Sooners returned to action this week with a home game against TCU. And we all know what happened the last time the Horned Frogs visited Norman. Hello and welcome to the latest edition of OU Football with Jake Trotter. I'm Mike Kaler. Joining me at the Dodge Sports Desk, as always, is OU Football beat writer Jake Trotter. Jake, let's take a look at some of the news from last week, most notably the injury to DeMarcus Granger and his decision to rehab his foot instead of having season-ending surgery. With Granger gone, I guess we need to talk about the impact of this on the OU defensive line. Who's going to come in to replace him, and what impact is that going to have?
I don't think it's going to make that big of an impact because they got some quality interior players already. Without DeMarcus Granger, they have Gerald McCoy, they have Adrian Taylor. Those have been their 2 starters. And they have Corey Bennett, who started in the past before. So they're going to be okay. I don't think it's a case of someone replacing him. They're probably just going to go with a 3-man rotation for now. They could bring in Kadero Moore if they needed a 4th guy. But they're going to wait and see how Granger rehabilitates and try to go with a 3-man rotation. People have done that before and have been okay.
Is that still going to be one of their strengths, though, up front with Gerald at the tackle? And
anytime you have Gerald McCoy, it's going to be a strength. So right. They're just not as deep as they were before. So
what's the prognosis look like for Granger? Like we were saying, he had the choice where he could have surgery. I don't know if he had the choice, but where they could go with surgery, which would end his season, or he could rehab, and he might be back. When do you think?
It's interesting. With an injury like that on a guy who weighs anywhere from 290 to 330 pounds, depending on what month you catch DeMarcus Granger, could be tough. Could be tough because that's a lot of pressure, a lot of stress on that foot. At the same time, anybody who's had sprained injuries before, you can come back from that relatively soon. You can come back in a month. It just depends how his foot heals, and I think we'll know more about it maybe when the swelling goes down in a couple weeks, where they feel like they can bring him back.
We've never really talked a lot about the circumstances around that injury against Washington. Was that just tell me a little bit about that? Was that a cheap shot?
Well, the injury itself didn't come from a cheap shot, I don't think. I think he just got it rolled up. Now, the punch in the side, maybe it was a little cheap.
Right.
But I don't think it had any impact on him injuring his foot.
All right, let's go back and talk about the TCU game. TCU comes into Norman, and the last time that happened, the Sooners lost their opener, one of only 2 losses at home for Bob Stoops. How does TCU stack up this season? They're coming in the game ranked. And could this be a quality win for OU when it's all said and done?
TCU is really, really good. It's going to be a nice win for OU if they come out of this game unscathed. Because TCU really is one of 3 teams in the Mountain West who are going to be BCS busters potentially with BYU and Utah. And they get BYU in Fort Worth here in about a month. So this could go down the line and be a really quality win for Oklahoma if they were able to beat TCU.
Is this a deal where OU wants to beat these guys and then root for them to win all the rest of their games?
Absolutely. And you look at the SEC, there's a lot of good teams that have the SEC. You got to feel like somebody's going to come out of that league with undefeated or 1 loss, even though they're going to beat up on each other. I mean, Florida looked great. Georgia looks really good. LSU had a great win. So you want to be able to be above those teams in the computer rankings and the BCS standings when they come out. And just like OU was ahead of Auburn a few years ago in 2004. And it may come down to a win over Cincinnati or TCU versus whatever non-conference win the SEC teams have. But it's going to be tough. OU is going to need all the help it can get because the SEC is going to provide a lot of quality opponents for whoever the national title contender emerges from that conference.
Well, let's talk about TCU a little bit before we get into the conferences. What makes them good? What makes them get
They're
into
great defensively. They have 2 great defensive ends. Jerry Hughes has like an unbelievable stat line already. He has 2 picks, 3 sacks, 2 forced fumbles, 2 fumble recoveries, returned a pick for a touchdown, 6 tackles for loss. I mean, the list goes on and on. They're very solid defensively. Always have been under Gary Patterson, who's been around now for I guess 7, 8 seasons. So that's going to be tough. And then offensively, they like to run the ball, control the clock. It's basically the same team we've seen with TCU over the years, and I believe this is their best team since the 2005 team that beat Oklahoma and Norman.
All right, let's talk a little bit. You touched on this a little bit, but looking at how the conference is stacked up, LSU had a good win on Saturday. They've got a bunch of teams in the top 10. Big 12 has 4 teams in the top 10 now. But overall, SEC is still stacking up as a better conference than the Big 12?
Big 12 is really good. I mean, the Colorado win was great. West Virginia, it would have been nice to see Baylor go up to Connecticut and win. Couldn't get it done, but played really well. But the SEC still the better conference. I mean, look at Georgia going to Arizona State. Probably the second best team in the Pac-10, even though they're not ranked.
Which isn't saying a lot.
It's not saying anything. I'd rather be the second best team in the Mountain West right now. But they went and they just hammered Arizona State. Florida went to Tennessee, and I know it was a league game, but looked really good against what we think is a pretty decent Tennessee team. And then LSU went to Auburn and won against the top 10 teams. So I just think the top 6-7 teams in the SEC are probably better than the top 6-7 teams out of the Big 12. And that's not saying anything bad against the Big 12, because the Big 12 is this could be probably the best year the Big 12 has ever had since it became a conference in '96. It's top heavy. Teams like Baylor at the bottom are a lot better than they've been. You got those middle rung teams like Oklahoma State and Colorado are having good seasons too.
Well, but if you're an OU fan thinking about the national championship picture, though, you kind of let USC do what they do, and then you keep an eye on who? You keep an eye on Florida.
You just want all these SEC teams to lose.
To beat each other.
If OU is undefeated and an SEC team is undefeated, it's going to be very tough for OU to make it to the national title game, because the computer rankings are going to favor those SEC teams. Now, if Oklahoma has one loss and the SEC team has two losses, or Oklahoma's undefeated and the SEC has one loss, then you're going to be okay. But every year, if you win the SEC, if you go through the SEC and you're undefeated, you probably deserve to play in the national championship game. And another team that better watch out is USC. And I think USC is okay now, and they're probably going to win the rest of their games. But if it comes down to undefeated USC, undefeated Oklahoma or Missouri, and an undefeated Georgia, given Georgia's schedule, it's going to be Georgia and somebody else. It's not going to be USC and somebody else.
Because the Pac-10 is so weak.
Exactly.
All righty, that clears that up. Thanks, Jake. Jake will join us again Friday for the Bedlam Nation Conversation, and at 4 o'clock on Saturday during NewsOK.com's live pregame show for Campus Corner. Until then, get all of your OU football news and analysis from the best coverage team in the state at NewsOK.com, NewsOK.tv, and every day in the Oklahoman.
Let's see it.